I would use a microphone, even in a room like this.
Yeah.
So it's about comprehension, not just volume. And of course, and these are our old brochure logos, but we are using them all, so you get to have that. Yeah, exactly. So, as you all know, I'm Becky, and I am the Ravalli County Coordinator for Summit Independent Living. And independent living is different from all other forms of services, human services, because we are for and we are done by people with disabilities. It was the independent living movement, which was a civil rights movement for people with disabilities in the 1960s. I'm going to briefly explain that so that we can get how Summit got developed. The independent living movement started when a bunch of college students in the 1960s, and so this was around the same time as the overall civil rights movement that we've all heard about with African Americans was going on, wanted to go to college. And they were denied that. They were denied going to high school, they were denied going to college. Particularly a person named Ed Roberts. He was born with polio, he lived in an iron, or not born, he got it when he was 14, lived in an iron lung. And what happened to Ed Roberts was this. When he was 14, he was a football player, got polio, and thought, I'm just going to kill myself. I don't want to live. And what happened to him, he decided that a person living in an iron lung, he was only 14, but a person living in an iron lung can't kill themselves very easily. So he decided that he was going to starve himself to death. And so the last duty nurse went off, he'd been, losing weight, and he knew that he would probably die soon. And something came to him where he thought, you know what, I want to live. And he said, basically, he decided right then that he was going to do everything that he wanted to do. And that people were going to stare at him, and he knew this, because if you've ever seen an iron lung, and I haven't seen one in person really, I've seen pictures of them, but they were, as long as that table over there, he decided that he was going to be a star. People were going to stare at him, so he was going to be a star. And he could use 2 fingers, okay? He ended up going to high school by phone. Then he got into the University of California at Berkeley. At first they wouldn't accept him. For several years, they would not accept him. Finally, he fought and they accepted him. And they had started accepting other people with disabilities. Well, they all got together because they had to live in the infirmary. Imagine being a 20-year-old living in an infirmary. What 20-year-old wants to live in an infirmary? Your son is about to go off to college. He doesn't want to live at the health center. And so independent living got its name because people with disabilities wanted to live independently just like everyone else. That's where the name came from. We are, and I get this question a lot, so I'm going to say we're not a housing development. And actually, it says Independent Living Center on your brochure because they're old. We dropped the word center from our name so that people do not think, I get this question all the time when I do in-services. We're not a housing development. We are mandated by the Rehab Act of 1973. And the way that came about was that Ed Roberts and a group called the Rolling Quads from Berkeley, Coach 11, and they're, I could show a video, and they're old Emerson Jennings, ancient, the wheelchairs that were as heavy as all get out, started to agitate, and they did sit-ins. They learned how to do sit-ins and get out of their chairs and lay down on the floor and this kind of thing. And people had to take notice. And they actually actually got, Ed Roberts ended up not only going to college, but his vocational rehabilitation counselor said, you'll go to college and then you'll go to the nursing home. Well, Ed Roberts went to college, Ed Roberts got a master's degree, and then Ed Roberts took over vocational rehabilitation for the state of California. So, he didn't go to the nursing home. And they started the first center for independent living in Berkeley in 1970, I believe it was 1977. And at the same time, the Rehab Act of 1973 had been passed, the Rehabilitation Act, which basically guaranteed, under the act, guaranteed the rights of people with disabilities, particularly Section 504. I feel like I'm having to talk about her.
Sorry.
Section.
Turn it off, Belinda. We don't need it.
Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the amendments to the Rehabilitation Act in 1973, guaranteed the right of people with disabilities to be not discriminated against in any place where they received federal funding. So, those had not been signed. In 1977, it was called Health, Education, and Welfare. They had not been signed into law. Carter was president. The longest sit-in in American history took place when people with disabilities took over the HEW offices all over the United States. But particularly in San Francisco, they held the building for about a month, even though they turned off the power, and they tried to shut off the water. And so these are people with significant disabilities and no, power and water. They had demonstrations outside. They had people inside the building. And one of the people that was involved in this was a young woman named Judy Heumann, who was denied the right. She got a degree in education, and she was denied the right to become a school teacher because she was also a person with polio and used a chair. It didn't affect her brain, but they wouldn't hire her. And at that time, they were much more open about it and just be like, well, we're not going to hire you because, how can you be a teacher sitting in a wheelchair? So she participated in the sit-ins, and from that, you might have heard of her because she worked in both the Clinton and Obama administrations. She was the director of the Office of Special Education under President Clinton, and she was a consultant to, I want to say, health and education under Obama. And so she held that position until January, of course. And at any rate, I'm giving you the shortened version, we're moving right along. In 1981, Summit came about. And Summit came about because of a grant through Community Hospital. And they had heard about the center in California, and there were other centers being developed. And they wrote a grant and got the federal funding. So we consequently have federal funding, which means that we can do a lot more. They cut off federal funding to new centers. So new centers in other states now have to rely on state funding or grants. And the problem with that is it's a lot harder to develop a center when you don't have federal funding.
So yes. Summit is a Western Montana base
yes.
only. Now.
Yes, and I'm going to talk about that. We cover 7 counties in Western Montana. I cover Ravalli County. I have one other full-time staff, a new person. He's a young man, not experienced, but very, very enthusiastic. And he is originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. And so he's trying to get his United States citizenship, and we're all on pins and needles about that. And I have a part-time staff person who has been with the agency for a long time. And the agency typically has to be, the board of directors and the agency itself has to have at least minimum 51% people with disabilities. So in other words, we're in control. We do not require people to bring us medical documentation of their disability. And the reason is, the philosophy of independent living is this: you would not come to us and say, you are a person with a disability unless you really were. Because the stigma in our country is so great that no one is going to want to claim that they have a disability if they don't. And let me tell you something. I have never seen one single person, so if you've heard people tell you, oh, there's all these people trying to get on benefits and whatever, I've never seen one person in all of the years, and I have now worked in the disability field, I can say for 22 years, I have never seen one single person in any of the places that I worked who came in and pretended that they had some kind of a disability. And there are now 500 centers in the United States and its territories, and in Canada there are some also. So it's a huge movement. It's not just here or West Coast or whatever. It's everywhere. And Centers for Independent Living have pushed forward a lot of the civil rights that people with disabilities now have. With the Americans with Disabilities Act, a lot of those people came out of Centers for Independent Living, which happened, of course, in 1990. And we believe in consumer choice and consumer control. In other words, you choose your goal, you choose what you're going to do with our services. And our philosophy is that every single person can do something. I mean, I've always thought that, and I'm going to just say this, although we're federally based, and so I can't talk about this at work, but I'm going to say it here because I'm in a church. I've always felt that Christian values and the values of independent living go hand in hand. Because every person that comes from our door is a person of value and worth, and a person who can do, not someone who cannot do. And so that is one of the overriding values in our center. And we have actually got, under the Rehabilitation Act, we have core services that we have to meet, and that's why I gave you this. And so we have information and referral. And let me tell you something. Yesterday I was doing my taxes, and I did information and referral, and the lady, is probably going to come in and bring someone in who will become a consumer of our services. And so we help people with everything from benefits assistance, and our new person, by the way, is being trained, so if you know anyone that needs help with their benefits, ask them to give me a call. We're working on housing, affordable and accessible housing, and believe me, in Hamilton, that's a huge issue. I'm going to ask Belinda to talk about one of the community meetings that deals with housing in a few minutes. But I can tell you this, if they require first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit equaling a month's rent, think about how much money that is. You have to have that in your bank. You have to have good credit. You have to have, all of these things, references, etc. Think about a person with a disability who is on benefits, trying to have that much money in their account. We also do senior companions on here. That's only done in our Missoula office. That's the main office. We have offices in Missoula, Kalispell, Ronan, and of course Hamilton, where my office is. And we're literally on the same side of the street as the high school and right down from the fairgrounds, on Fairgrounds Road, so we're easy to find. We're working on transportation, huge issue in our county. Huge county, Bitterroot bus, very little transportation. And most of the people that come and see me do not drive. And we really work on the education and self-advocacy and empowerment of people with disabilities. I primarily see now people who have visible and invisible disabilities, multiple disabilities. A visible disability is, of course, what you see like I have. We do not call an invisible disability a hidden disability. Hidden means that you're trying to hide it. Invisible means it's something like you have a head injury. We have a lot of people with head injuries, a lot of people with mental health problems, a lot of people with serious learning disabilities, emotional disabilities, you name it. I've seen it. We provide advocacy services. It says legal referral because we do not, that's the one thing I refuse to do. I'm not a lawyer. So, but I've been fighting for a lot of people with their landlords because landlords are not allowing people to have service dogs and things like this in their apartments, and of course that's illegal. It's not a pet, it's a service animal. And by the way, under the law, service animals are two things. A dog that is trained, you do not have to have a certification or wear a cape or any of that. The person cannot ask you, anything about the dog except what it can do for you. And the other animal that you can use is a miniature horse. I know, everybody knows that. And that would be new for me too. I've seen it, but I've seen someone with one, but dogs are the general. And the reason is the Americans with Disabilities Act was amended in 2008 because people were using, and I'm not making this up because I actually had a call about this once, animals like snakes. They claimed, there was a woman that claimed that she could, the snake would tell her when she was going to have an epileptic seizure. Well, the issue here is the animal has to alert you. The animal has to do something for you. How can a snake tell you that you're going to have a seizure? Yeah, right. We also provide peer support or advocacy. And what that is the core of independent living. Because of course, the people that originally got together and started the Center for Independent Living and worked in the civil rights for people with disabilities, and I'll talk about ADAPT in a minute, we're all supporting one another. It's like, this is kind of a, I want to say duh, okay? But people with disabilities, and we're cross-disability, meaning that you can have any type of disability, but we have similar experiences. So for example, one of my peer advocates is a person who has low vision, but he and I share the experience of not driving. I don't drive at this point, although I used to. And so we have a lot in common in that way. And so peers are people, and I'm doing peer training right now at our center, are people with disabilities who are trained. They are not counselors. They are not, they're not professionals per se. They are people who have lived the experience and can help someone else with disabilities. And basically, we help build a sense of community together. So like we have coming up this next week on Tuesday a chili cook-off with a prize. And if you want to know more about that, let me know, because I would love to have people come. We also have a group called Women on the Move. They do activities. We're having Rosemary Hughes from the university come and speak with us next month. because she had done a self-esteem, developed a self-esteem training for women with disabilities that I want to